Welcome to FearBound Stories. Please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now let's begin. Melissa's bathroom was her sanctuary. It wasn't big, just a small tiled space in the corner of her old apartment. The kind of place where the walls always felt a little damp and the mirror fogged up too easily. But she liked it that way. It was her retreat, her nightly ritual, until the noises began. It started with scratching. At first, Melissa dismissed it. The building was old. The pipes groaned when the neighbors upstairs flushed their toilets. The radiators hissed and clanked like angry spirits in the winter. But this was different. The scratching always came from the same place, the bathtub drain. Late at night, when the apartment was quiet, she would hear faint clicks and scrapes, as though something metallic, or worse, something with nails, dragged against the inside of the pipes. At first, she tried to ignore it. Turn up the faucet. Run the fan. Hum to herself. But the noise didn't stop. It grew louder, more intentional, like someone trying to claw their way up. One night, as she stood brushing her teeth, she felt the hairs rise on her arms. The scratching had shifted into something wetter, sloshing, almost breathing. She leaned over the tub and peered into the drain. Her reflection shimmered in the water, but below it, just for a second, she saw something pale move, a fingertip. Her stomach dropped. She stumbled back, laughing nervously at herself, convincing herself it was just hair or shadows. But she didn't use the shower the next day, or the day after that. A week later, exhaustion won. She needed a shower. She turned on the water, letting the steam fill the room, trying to calm her nerves. But as she stood there, something felt wrong. The water didn't swirl naturally down the drain. It tugged, pulled, like a current dragging it away. She looked down. The drain seemed wider than usual, darker, like an open mouth. Then, she saw it. A finger, then another. Long, waterlogged, with cracked nails. Slowly, impossibly, a whole hand began to rise. Melissa screamed. The hand gripped the drain's edge, slick with black water pulling upward. The fingers flexed, reaching for her ankle. Panicking, she grabbed the plunger, slamming it down again and again. She felt resistance. Not metal, not pipes, but something soft. Flesh. With a final heave, the hand slipped back down, vanishing into the darkness below. Water swirled again, the tub empty as though nothing had happened. But the silence was worse. Melissa avoided the bathroom for the rest of the night. She slept with the lights on, every creak in the apartment making her jump. By morning, she convinced herself it had been stress, imagination, maybe even a dream. Until she saw it. A wet handprint on the bathroom tiles right beside the tub. Too large, too long. And next to it, faint scratches leading toward her bedroom door. Terrified, Melissa called the landlord, demanding maintenance. The old superintendent showed up 2 days later, shaking his head as she explained. He didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss her. He only muttered, "You're not the first." Melissa froze. The super told her stories, other tenants who had complained about the drains. Some said the water pulled too strongly, like it wanted them down there. Others heard voices, whispers rising up through the pipes at night. One tenant, years ago, had vanished. His apartment was found locked from the inside. The only clue, the bathroom floor soaked through, water still trickling from the tub. Melissa didn't sleep for days. She kept the bathroom door shut, a towel shoved under the crack. But that night, the noises returned. Louder, angrier, not scratching anymore, pounding. Something was slamming against the pipes from below. The floor vibrated. The mirror rattled. And then came the sound of rushing water, though every faucet in the apartment was off. Melissa grabbed her keys, ready to run, when she heard it. A voice, low, wet, echoing through the bathroom door. Her name. Melissa. She froze. Then came the sound of water spilling. A flood. Against her will, she opened the bathroom door. The tub was overflowing, water black and thick, pouring onto the tiles. And in the middle of it, a pale hand gripping the edge, pulling higher. This time it wasn't stopping. An arm followed, then the curve of a head, slick and bloated, eyes bulging, mouth stretched wide. Melissa screamed and fled the apartment, never once looking back. She never returned. She left everything behind. Furniture, clothes, even her grandmother's heirloom jewelry. Months later, she searched online out of morbid curiosity. She found a news clipping. Local woman drowns in apartment bathroom. Cause of flooding unknown. No plumbing issues found. The date was recent, after she had moved. Someone else had taken her old unit, and the bathroom had claimed them. Ethan had always hated working late. By day, the office tower buzzed with life. Phones ringing, printers humming, colleagues chatting. But after 10 p.m., the place transformed. The wide glass corridors echoed with his footsteps. The elevators creaked like old coffins, and the hum of fluorescent lights seemed louder than his own breathing. That night was no different. Midnight deadlines kept him chained to his desk. When his head began to ache and his eyes burned from staring at spreadsheets, he decided to take a break. He walked down the deserted hallway to the men's restroom. The motion sensor lights flickered on as he entered. White tiles, cold air, the faint smell of disinfectant. Ordinary, but the silence pressed in on him. He headed to a stall at the far end, pushing the door open. That was when he saw it. The mirror? It covered almost the entire inside wall of the stall, grimy and dim. Strange. He'd used this bathroom dozens of times, but never noticed it before. He stepped inside. The mirror reflected everything. The stall walls, the graffiti etched into the door, the toilet. But not him. Where he should have stood was only empty space. Ethan blinked, rubbed his eyes, even leaned in close. Still nothing. Then movement rippled across the glass. A man stood where his reflection should have been, gaunt, pale. His skin sagged like wet paper, and his lips stretched into a smile so wide it tore at the corners of his face. His eyes were hollow pits, blacker than shadow. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The figure didn't copy him. It just stared, its grin growing wider. He stumbled back, slamming into the stall door. The figure didn't move. Heart pounding, he shoved the door open and ran for the sinks. The large mirror above the sink showed him, but also showed something else. The stall he had fled. And in it, the grinning man watching. Ethan spun around. The stall was empty. But the mirror told another story. Panic set in. He bolted from the restroom, racing down the hall. The whole building felt alive now. Shadows stretching, lights buzzing louder, the glass windows reflecting shapes that weren't there. At the elevator, the mirrored doors loomed in front of him. His reflection trembled in the steel. But behind him stood the figure, its head tilted, smile grotesque, eyes locked on his. Then the reflection moved on its own. The figure's hand pressed against the mirrored door, stretching outward. Ethan screamed. The elevator dinged and opened, empty. He didn't look back. He ran for the stairs, bolting down 20 flights before bursting into the night air. He never stayed late again. Weeks later, Ethan overheard something that chilled him more than the encounter itself. Another employee, a young woman from HR, mentioned the far stall in that same restroom. She said she hated it. The mirror never showed her reflection. Sometimes, she swore she saw someone else there, smiling at her from inside the glass. Stories spread through the office like wildfire. A cleaner confessed she avoided that bathroom at all costs. She said she once saw a figure standing in the stall while mopping the floor, but when she looked in person, the stall was empty. Only the mirror showed it. Another employee joked about it at lunch, claiming he'd tested it himself. He sat in the stall and waved, laughing when the mirror didn't copy him. He laughed until he saw a hand, not his own, wave back. The man quit a week later. The building itself was old, built in the 1970s before the company moved in. Some whispered that a man had died in that restroom during construction. Others said a janitor took his life there decades ago, slashing his throat in the very stall with the mirror. Whatever the truth, the stall gained a reputation. By day, no one mentioned it, but at night, employees avoided that bathroom entirely. The reflection, or the lack of it, became an office legend. Ethan never saw the figure again, but he never forgot it either. Every time he passed a mirror, he looked twice, half expecting not to see himself. And deep down, he wondered, maybe he had escaped that night, or maybe he was already gone, and the reflection that should have been his was still trapped in that stall, smiling. Samantha had never liked shower curtains. Glass doors were fine, transparent, predictable, easy to see through. But shower curtains, they swayed when there was no draft. They cast shadows that didn't belong, and they always seemed thick enough to hide someone standing silently on the other side. So when she moved into her new apartment, her heart sank at the sight of the bathroom. The tub was old porcelain, cracked around the edges, and a heavy yellowed curtain hung stiff from rusted rings. It reeked faintly of mildew, and the fabric felt damp even when dry. The landlord had promised to replace it, but weeks passed and the same old curtain remained. At first it was just a minor annoyance. Then came the whisper. It was the third night. Samantha was brushing her teeth when she heard it, faint, almost drowned by the buzz of her toothbrush. A low, wet sound. She stopped brushing, foam dripping from her lips, and listened. "Hello." The word slithered through the room. She froze, eyes darting toward the curtain. The sound hadn't come from the hall. It hadn't come from the vent. It came from behind the curtain. Her hand trembled as she grabbed the edge and yanked it back. The tub was empty. Just damp tiles, a slow drip from the faucet. She let out a nervous laugh, telling herself it was the pipes. Old buildings carried strange sounds, didn't they? She tried to believe that, but the whisper came back the next night, and the night after that. It grew bolder. At first it murmured unintelligible words, a hiss that might have been water, but soon it began to form sentences. Short, incomplete. Sometimes it said her name. Sometimes it said things she couldn't quite catch, like the words were spoken underwater, distorted and gurgling. But the worst was when she caught it whispering in sync with her own thoughts, repeating them, as if it were reading her mind. She stopped using the bathroom at night. She brushed her teeth in the kitchen sink. She left the bathroom door shut, wedging a towel at the bottom to block out the sound. But the whisper carried through the walls. She would lie awake in bed, staring at the ceiling and hear it in the pipes, muttering, "Patient," like someone waiting for her to come closer. A week later, her fear gave way to anger. Armed with a flashlight, she stormed into the bathroom at midnight. The whispering was louder now, a chorus of voices tumbling over one another, urgent and hungry. Her hand shook as she yanked the curtain open. The tub was not empty. It was filled, not with water but with hair. Long, black, dripping strands coiled together like seaweed dredged from the ocean. They covered the porcelain, heavy and wet, clinging to the sides. Her breath caught, then she saw it. Hands, pale, swollen, buried in the mass, clawing upward through the hair. Nails cracked, skin gray. They scratched at the air, reaching for her. Samantha stumbled back, the flashlight slipping from her grip. Its beam rolled across the floor, cutting across the tub. For a split second, she saw a face. Eyes bulging, mouth open, whispering faster and faster, until the sound filled her ears like rushing water. She screamed and ran. The landlord didn't believe her. He waved her off, muttering something about old plumbing and voices through the pipes. But Samantha knew what she had seen. She moved out within a week, leaving furniture, dishes, even her favorite books behind. But her story wasn't over. Months later, curiosity gnawed at her. She searched her old address online, scrolling through tenant reviews and archived news articles. She wasn't the first. One review mentioned strange noises in the bathroom, whispers that came late at night. Another tenant described the curtain moving when no one touched it. And then she found an old police report. A woman who had lived there 10 years earlier had drowned. Not in a pool, not in a river, in her bathtub. The report said her mouth was packed with long black hair. Samantha's skin crawled as she slammed her laptop shut. She tried to forget, but a month later, she heard from a friend still living in the building. A new tenant had moved into her old unit. A young man. He lasted 3 nights. The neighbor said he broke his lease in the middle of the night, leaving all his belongings behind. When asked why, his only answer was chilling. He said the whispers didn't stop when he pulled the curtain back. They laughed. To this day, Samantha refuses to step near a shower curtain. She avoids them in hotels, in gyms, even in friends' homes, because she knows some curtains don't just hide shadows, some hide voices, and once you hear them, they never really stop. The storm had been relentless for hours, and Jordan's wipers couldn't keep up with the sheets of rain hammering his windshield. His eyes burned with exhaustion, and every mile felt heavier than the last. He needed caffeine, but more than that, he needed a bathroom. When the glowing red neon of a gas station sign flickered in the distance, it felt like a miracle. He pulled into the empty lot, water rushing across the cracked pavement, the whole place looking abandoned except for that weak buzzing light in the window. Inside, the air smelled of dust and mildew. Rows of snacks sat on shelves untouched. The clerk behind the counter didn't look up from his magazine when Jordan asked for the restroom. He only raised a finger and pointed down a narrow hallway lit by weak fluorescent bulbs. Jordan followed the hall. At the end, 2 doors, men's and women's. The men's door groaned on its hinges as he pushed it open. The bathroom was small, dirty tiles, cracked mirrors, graffiti carved into stall doors. He ducked into the far stall, relieved to finally sit, his mind already drifting toward the thought of coffee. That was when he heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 soft taps on the stall door. Jordan frowned, leaning forward to glance at the floor. No shoes. He checked both sides of the stall. Nothing. He swallowed. Occupied. Silence. Then slowly 3 more knocks. Louder this time. The sound didn't come from outside. It came from inside the wood itself, as though something was trapped within the door. Jordan's chest tightened. He shoved the stall open and stepped out quickly, scanning the bathroom. Empty. Just buzzing lights and the faint drip of a leaking faucet. He exhaled nervously, muttering to himself. Stress. Imagination. But then it started again. This time, the knocks came from the main bathroom door. 3 heavy bangs rattling the frame. Jordan's heart pounded. He stepped closer, hand reaching for the knob. Another knock. Louder. The metal vibrated under his fingers. He yanked it open. The hallway was empty. But when he turned back, the bathroom door was shut again. He hadn't touched it. Uneasy, he grabbed the handle and twisted. Locked. He rattled it harder. It wouldn't budge. The knocking returned. Not from the main door this time, but from the stalls. All three began to shake slightly as though someone inside each was tapping. Left, middle, right, each one taking turns. Jordan stumbled back against the sink, his pulse hammering in his ears. The knocking stopped. The silence was worse. Then the main door slammed shut with a force so violent it shook the entire room. The lights flickered. The mirror above the sink vibrated in its frame. Jordan looked up and froze. His reflection was wrong. It moved out of sync with him. Its mouth hung open, whispering soundlessly, lips stretching into words he couldn't hear. And then it smiled, a slow, knowing smile that wasn't his own. The knocking exploded again, not just on the stalls, not just on the door. From everywhere. The tiles beneath his feet, the ceiling above him, even the mirror. Like dozens of fists hammering at once, demanding to be let out. Jordan covered his ears and screamed, pounding on the main door. Suddenly, it swung open on its own. He stumbled into the hallway, gasping, soaked with sweat. The lights above buzzed faintly, normal again, as though nothing had happened. The clerk looked up for the first time as Jordan burst out of the hall. His face was pale, his eyes unreadable. "You used the bathroom?" the clerk asked softly. Jordan nodded, still shaking. The clerk stared at him for a long moment. "You should never knock back," he said. His voice was flat, almost a warning. Jordan stammered something incoherent, then fled into the rain, desperate to put miles between himself and that gas station. But the knocking followed him. That night, as he pulled into a motel hours later, he swore he heard it again. 3 soft taps, coming from the trunk of his car. He laughed nervously, telling himself it was just the storm, the wind, anything but that. But when he opened his motel bathroom door later, exhaustion pulling at his bones, he froze. The door behind him knocked. 3 times. Deliberate. Waiting. He never slept. He left before dawn, abandoning the motel key on the counter. Later, curiosity gnawed at him. He searched online for the gas station, trying to prove to himself it was just stress. He found an article from years earlier. Local drifter found dead in gas station restroom. Door locked from the inside. Cause of death undetermined. Locals report strange noises from the restroom ever since. Jordan shut the laptop, his hands trembling. Because now, whenever he entered a restroom, anywhere, anytime, he found himself waiting for the knock. Caroline had only been in her new apartment for a week when she noticed the stain. It was small, tucked away in the corner of the bathroom floor, darkened into the grout between 2 cracked tiles. At first she thought it was rust, or maybe water damage from years of neglect. She sprayed it with bleach, scrubbed until her hands ached, and went to bed satisfied. But the next morning it was back. Not only back, but darker. She leaned close and sniffed, and her stomach turned. It smelled faintly of iron, like blood. At first she laughed it off. Old buildings carried plenty of quirks. But over the next few days, she noticed something unsettling. Whenever she ran hot water, steam seemed to bring the stain to life. The moment the bathroom filled with mist, the patch would gleam redder, almost fresh. By the end of the week, a thin line had crept outward from it, a streak that seemed to lead toward the bathtub. She touched it with a tissue. It smeared. Caroline scrubbed harder. Bleach, vinegar. Even industrial cleaner she bought from a hardware store. The streaks faded, only to reappear within hours, stretching further. Soon, faint splatters showed on the walls. Barely visible in daylight, but at night they seemed to pulse with color, bleeding through layers of paint. And always there was the smell, metallic, heavy, clinging to her skin and hair, until even her meals tasted wrong. Then came the noises. At first, a faint drip, drip, drip when the taps were off. then muffled thuds like fists pounding against tile. But worse were the nights she heard water running, even when she hadn't turned anything on. The sound came from behind the walls, rushing, choking, like something being drowned in the pipes. And then one night, the voice. She woke in the dark to a wet, rasping whisper echoing through the bathroom. "Help me!" Her blood turned cold. The whisper came again, drawn out, bubbling as though spoken through water. "Help me!" Against all reason, she opened the bathroom door. The floor was soaked. Red water pooled across the tiles, seeping from the corner where the stain had begun. It spread slowly toward her bare feet, warm and sticky, and in the mirror she saw him, a man, pale, drenched in blood, slumped against the corner with his throat cut, eyes rolling back in his head. His lips moved again. "Help me!" Caroline spun around. The corner was empty, but when she turned back, the mirror still showed him, and now his reflection pressed a bloody hand against the glass. She fled that night, suitcase half-packed, abandoning dishes, clothes, even family heirlooms. She didn't look back. But curiosity gnawed at her. Weeks later, she searched the address online. That's when she found it. Years earlier, a tenant had been murdered in that very bathroom. His killer slit his throat and left him bleeding out in the corner. By the time the body was discovered, the tiles had been soaked through, the grout stained permanently. The landlord tried everything: new grout, paint, replacement tiles. But tenants always complained the blood came back, and many of them left suddenly, abandoning everything just as Caroline had. One neighbor shared more. A young couple who lived there before Caroline had broken their lease after only 2 months. They claimed the stain spread at night, forming the shape of a body lying across the floor. The husband swore he woke one morning to find bloody footprints leading from the bathroom to their bed. The couple left in the middle of the night, and years before that, a student had gone missing from the same unit. His friend said he became obsessed with the bathroom, spending hours scrubbing the tiles until his hands bled. One night, he didn't show up for class. His things were found in the apartment, but the bathroom floor was soaked through with water. The stain had spread halfway up the walls. No body was ever recovered. Caroline read until her vision blurred, then slammed the laptop shut. She moved across town, into a brighter place with no history attached. But still, she couldn't shake it. Every time she entered her new bathroom, she expected to see red seeping from the corners. Sometimes, late at night, she swore she smelled iron again. And once, just once, she thought she heard it. That same whisper, "Help me." But this time it wasn't in her bathroom. It came from the drain in her kitchen sink. You've just crossed the boundary between reality and the unknown. If you felt the fear tonight, make sure to subscribe before you leave, because on this channel every story is just the beginning. New nightmares arrive every few nights, each one darker than the last. Until then, keep your lights low, your doors locked, and your mind open. You are now part of the FearBound family.